Hi and welcome to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be having a look at Microsoft Word and some of the basics on things in Word that will help you adapt and create resources for someone who has a visual impairment. I've also discovered a couple of things myself whilst looking at it this morning that I think would be useful for someone who has a visual impairment who is actually using Word themselves, so we're going to have a quick look at those as well. Okay, so just to start off with, I'm using Office 365, so your version of Word might look a little bit different to this, but it should be relatively the same. And most of the features I show you should be covered in pretty much all versions of Word, so don't worry too much if it looks a little bit different. Okay, so obviously you've got your basic editing tools. Everybody really should sort of have a good grasp of these. There are keyboard shortcuts for pretty much everything in Word as well. So we've got your alignment buttons here, so you can right align, left align, center, etc. We've got bold, italic and underline, and we've got fonts here, so we can change our fonts, we can change our font sizes, so you can either do it by clicking on the size or you can click on these little buttons here to change the size as well. We've got things like bullet points, we've got all sorts of stuff on here, we've got various different sort of themes or headings and that sort of thing as well. Now, when I'm adapting resources, one thing that I find particularly useful in Word is if I click on View. Now, for some reason by default this isn't switched on, we have something called Ruler in here, so if we click on that, it brings this ruler at the top of the screen and down the side here, so you can change things as you type in them if you want certain sentences to be shorter or longer, etc. So just by clicking and dragging the little markers on the side and at the top. Now the other thing we tend to do, historically, quite a lot of booklets and things that we've made for people have been ring bound, but these days most photocopiers and printers have sort of staple features and print things as booklets and whatnot. So to save space, you know, to give somebody a bit more room, because quite a lot of the people I work with do use quite large font sizes, what we tend to do is go to Layout, and in here you've got margin, you've got orientation, you've got size. So if we click on margins, and we tend to put it on narrow margins, so you've got pretty much as much page size as you can use there. The other things that might be useful to note in here as well, so you've got page size in here. Quite often I will print things from A4 to an A3 booklet when I'm in the office, but you might want to print you might want to change your page size to A5, you might want to print some things in A3, and there's some other paper sizes here which you're probably less likely to use, but you may do if you're certainly if you're in other countries like America. They tend to use legal letter size paper quite a lot as well. Orientation, you can change from portrait to landscape. Now one thing that people have asked me a few times before is if they're working a document, they might want some pages in portrait, and then if they're working on a particularly big graph or something like that, they might want the next page to be in landscape and then go back to portrait again. So the way to do this is get to your bottom of your page, and now if you go to Insert, if we go back to Layout, and here where it says Breaks, we go to Next Page, it basically creates a page break between these two pages. So now if I go to Orientation and Landscape, it will change that page but keep that page like so. And similarly, if I go into a new page now, it would create another landscape page, but I don't particularly want that, so do the same thing again. So Break, next page, and then change my orientation back to portrait. So now we've got front page of our booklet, we've got a page we might want to stick an image or a graph or something on there, which works out better than those dimensions, and then go back to our portrait pages again. So those are really useful. Other tools that I tend to use quite frequently are things like the wrap text tool. So if I just find an image really quickly, excuse me a second, just while in fact, I've probably got something on my computer I can insert. So if I go to Insert and Pictures, and some slightly random pictures on here, that'll do. Right, okay, so I've got an interesting photo of a badger there. So if I double click on that, and then click on Wrap Text, and there's various different options. So you can put it behind text that's on the screen. I tend to use type most of the time, and that's just vanished. It's gone on to the next page, but it means that I can click and drag to resize it, and I can move it around on the screen as well and pop it wherever I want to pop it. So type basically means if I had a load of text on there, how are you? This is a picture of a badger. Should have a question mark in there already, shouldn't I, strictly speaking? Oops, sorry. So yeah, so if you've got it on tight, it will wrap the text around the actual image. If I just pop that down there, see, it would move the text corresponding to where the picture is. Similarly, if I put it on, let's put it on behind text, it will actually put the image behind the text. And if I put it square, it's fairly similar to the tight option there. Or I can put it in front of text and just pop it over top of the text if I want to. Okay, so those are pretty useful features. Other features that are quite useful are these buttons up here. So we've got bring forward, send backward. So if you've got more than one image, let me stick another picture in quickly. And let's find another random picture. Don't ask. So if I just click on tight on that one as well, and just resize that a little bit. So you see it's got on top of this other image here, but I might not want that, so I can just click on here. I can just click on this once and it'll send back, or I can click on the little drop down and choose if I want to send it right back, or send it send it right to the back, or just send it backwards once, or send it behind text. So you can move things around that way as well. Other things that we tend to use quite a lot are things like some of the shape options. I'll look at those in a moment, and also text boxes we tend to use quite a lot, especially if you're labelling sort of diagrams and that sort of thing. So if I go to, let's quickly show you that again. So if I go to Insert and Text Box, I can draw a text box. I'll just click on there and it'll create one for me. Now, one thing to note about text boxes is it doesn't usually put it in the same font and font size as the text that you have on the actual document, so just keep that in mind, so that you probably need to change it again back to whatever it was on. So I had the font on Emerald 24, I think, didn't I? And then you can just type what you want in there. Hello there. Another thing you can do with text boxes, so I could put that on top of an image if I wanted to. The other thing I could do, if I wanted, I could click on shape format at the top of the screen here, and I could go to shape fill and no fill, which basically makes the background of the text box transparent. I've still got this line around it, but I could get rid of that if I wanted to as well. Excuse me. Or I could put a weightier outline around it if I wanted a big thick text box for whatever reason. And again, if I wanted to, I could go to center my text, and it will center it within that text box. So there we go. So those are some of the features that we tend to use quite a bit. The other one I mentioned before is some of the shape options. I don't do a lot of drawing type things in Word because I use other programs to do that, but one thing I do use quite a lot is the arrows tool. So if I click on this one and stick an arrow up there, and then you've got various sort of themes for arrows that you can choose from if you want to, or you can just do it all yourself. So if I go to shape outline, I can change the colour of it. So if I just make it, let's make it orange, and I can go to shape outline again, and I can change the weight of the arrows. It just makes it a much thicker line, and there's different types of arrows and things as well. So yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff like that. Anything else in here that's worth mention? I think those are the main things. Oh, headers and footers and page numbers as well. Yes, that's the other thing I was going to mention. So if you want to put a header or a footer in, you can just double click on the top or the bottom of the screen and type in what you want in there. And if I just click back off that again, you'll see this sort of greyed out header at the top here. Now, page numbers, quite a useful one to use, obviously, because you might want to put page numbers on a particular booklet that you're working on. So again, you can go to Insert and you can go to page number here, and you can say whereabouts you want the page number to be. So I'm going to put mine at the bottom of the right of my page. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to make those page numbers bigger. So if I just double click on that again, highlight it, go to Home, and I'll put it back on my Arial and 24 font again. Okay, and obviously if you don't want page numbers at the bottom, you could get rid of those, or you could type something else in the footer if you wanted. Or have both. There we go. Okay, any other features in Word that would be useful to know? Obviously, like I mentioned before, it has got keyboard shortcuts for everything in Word. If I press Alt, you see these letters and numbers appear at the top of the screen, so I can use shortcuts to get to the different parts of Word if I want to. So if I press N on my keyboard now, it will go to the Insert tab. And then if I press T, for example, it will go to Table, and I can use the arrow keys to draw a table if I want to, or I can just click and drag with the mouse. Tables are actually quite a useful one to mention. I'm just going to get rid of some of these other things off the screen in a second so you can see a bit better. I'm going to get rid of all that. So when I tend to make tables, depending on what the table's like on the original document, I might want to change a few things about the table to make it look a bit nicer. So if I go to Table Design, I can go to Borders and Shading. I've got all my borders selected at the moment, and I'm going to change the weight of the borders so that it just makes that a little bit thicker. Another tool I tend to use quite a lot in Word, if I just double click on my table again, is in Layout. There's an eraser tool in here, and there's a draw table tool in here as well, so I might want to change some of my table. So for example, if I just get rid of these two lines here, now I might have some column headings across the top there and some row headings down there, and it just makes the table look a bit better that way. I can obviously change some of the borders and not change others if I want to. There's loads of things you can do. I can also click on Draw Table, and I can draw a line back in again if I want to, or several lines back in. Oops. And the other thing to note about tables is, just go back to my selection tool, you can very easily add an extra row just by clicking on, if you drag, sort of let your mouse hover around the bottom of the table, you can add another row. Similarly, if you go to the edge of the table, you can add an extra column. If I've stretched this by mistake and I want them all to be the same size again, I can highlight them all, and I can right click and click on Distribute Columns Evenly, and it'll pop it back. Or I could just do a couple of columns the same width if I wanted to. So lots of different features like that with tables are really useful. Now, a couple of things I mentioned at the beginning of the video, for someone who has a visual impairment who might be using Word themselves, there are a couple of really useful features in Word that are worth looking at. So I'm just going to do this. So there's a lot of screen clutter at the moment on Word. If I click on here, it'll collapse that ribbon. If I want to get it back again, I can just click on any of these, and then click on this little pin on the side here. I don't know if you can see that at the moment actually, because my video is probably in the way, but there's a small pin icon on the right hand side, so I can click on there and it will bring and it will keep this back on the screen again. A couple of things I've discovered myself this morning, which I've not noticed before. I'll just paste a bit of text in here. If I go to View, this is where we put our ruler on. You can also have grid lines and other things as well. But there's a couple of options on here which I don't know if these are specific to later versions of Word. I think they possibly are because I've not seen them previously. But you can click on Focus, and what this basically does is it gets rid of everything, and I am literally just typing on a page on the screen, which might be quite useful. Because obviously that completely reduces screen clutter. If I just press Escape, it comes out of that. And this other one is quite nice. This is called Immersive Reader. So if I click on here, it's spaced my text out for me. You can change how much it spaces the text out just on here. You can also click on this thing, line focus, and you can focus on specific numbers of lines at a time. So if I click on one line, so now it's literally just highlighting one line that I'm working on, which is really quite useful if that helps direct someone's vision. You obviously can change page colour and things like that on there as well. So let's just have a nice green background. So yeah, that's quite a nice feature, that one, that I've not actually come across myself until very recently. The other thing you can do is you can read aloud in here as well. So hopefully I've got some sound turned up.
This is a test of the Immersive Reader.
Yep.
It is pretty cool and could be quite useful for some people. Hi there.
There we go. So that's quite clever as well. And it's a feature that I didn't know was already in Word, so really worth looking at that. Okay. I think that's pretty much covers the basics. If anybody has any questions about anything else in Word or any other Office software that they think might be useful, or that they want to know any more about them, please do get in touch, and I'll see what I can do. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.